Hey everyone, Hydra Hut here. First, let me start off by saying I'm sorry about any outside noise, but it is freezing ass cold. It's 34 degrees right now, which for my western ass is pretty damn cold. So I got the car running and the heater on right now. Moving on though, this is the Cursed Comics Cavalcade! And cursed is a good word for it. We got an 80-page count, we got 10 stories, and it costs $10. And I know what you're thinking, wow, what a great deal. $10 per story. Well, no, not really. Maybe if there were 10 really good stories, then you could say that's a good deal. Or maybe if you got 10 pages per story. But you'll notice this is an 80-page comic with 10 stories. So we don't even get 10 pages per story. Also, they did an odd job pairing this up. So, like, they'll take a good writer and give them a bad artist. Or they take a really good artist and give them a really poor writer. They didn't put a whole lot of money into this, and it's very, very, very obvious. There are a lot of good ideas in this book with very, very poor execution. All in all, this is a waste of $10. I don't recommend anybody spend their money on this. And cursed is a good name for it, because I've cursed everybody responsible for making it. So, let's go ahead and jump right in. It's a cool cover. I like the cover. You know, doesn't really tell us anything about what's going on inside. In fact, I don't remember Batman being in this story. So, here's a little rundown on who we're going to be getting it from. We got a Swamp Thing story, Superman, Batman, Green Arrow, Wonder Woman, Black Lightning, Guy Gardner, he's a Green Lantern, Robin, and Solomon Grundy, the Demon Etrigan, and Zatanna. Let's start off with Swamp Thing. The art is good. I'm a big fan of this artist. He did a great job. That's Kyle Holtz. And the writer is Tim Seeley. Tim Seeley is a good writer. He can write well. I think he does better on longer stuff. This is very, very boring. It's a good thing it's got fantastic art, because if it wasn't for the art, it would be hard to stay entertained by this. And now the theory behind it is really good. I like the idea behind the story and like what he was going for with it. I just think the execution was kind of, I don't know, half-assed, boring, lame. Not impressed. Not impressed in the slightest. But essentially we'll sum it up. So Alec Hollins, I think it's his daughter, actually. Anyway, there's this girl who gets basically possessed by the green, but she has some really good antibodies, so her antibodies start creating basically an antivirus to the green. And that, what it does is it turns everything that is a living organism into a meat-based organism, like a human. And so it turns the green into the red, essentially. Alec Hollins shows up and basically purges her to prevent that from spreading, because if her body turned into that quote-unquote antivirus, it would have spread across the world and turned all of the green into the red. So basically all plant life into mammalian life. There's a better word for that, but I don't know what it is because I'm dumb. Our next story is Gotham Woods Camp. This one has okay art. The story starts off really good, like a solid Batman story. We got a serial killer. We got Batman hunting him down. It's his kids at the camp. Very, very much your typical horror story. And then there's not a whole lot of words. It's all just kind of lead up and pictures and showing us what's happening. Batman gets the killer, and we find out that it's just some dude who's basically been taken captive, and the girl that we thought was being attacked is the actual killer. And Batman swoops her up and takes her to the asylum. The end. That whole lot of cool build-up, followed by a real meh ending, with kind of an immature bad guy. But Ricardo Federici is a good artist. Gary Dauberman, I think you could have told a better story if you had more time. It seems like a lot of these guys really aren't good at a 7 to 8 page comic. So we move on to our next story. This one we're in Greece. This one's about Wonder Woman and Sirens. I don't like this story. It was well done. The art was good. It's by Vita Ayala, Victor Ibanez, Matthew Wilson, and Clayton Cowles, of course, is the letterer. Whole lot of exposition. They take a lot of freedom with Sirens. And I don't remember Diana's backstory being quite the way they explain it. But my real problem with this is we got this very cool story when it comes to the art. Like, the art looks fantastic and you think the story is great. But all the word is just this stupid exposition where they take an old fable and then they try and change the meaning of it because apparently they don't understand what the fable actually means. And then they try and like force this little message into it. I don't like it. I didn't like it at all. That was stupid. The art was fantastic, and I think if somebody else wrote a story over the top of the art, then it could have been a lot better. The next one is Guy Gardner. It's a Green Lantern story. This one, the writer did a good job. The artist, not so much. But they do this bullshit where they're like, hey, our storytellers are Kenny Porter and Riley Rosmo, instead of telling us who did the art and who did the writing. So I think it must have been both of them. And the art is poor. It's expressive, it's consistent, but it's annoyingly bad in my opinion. The story was good though. I actually enjoyed the story for the most part. Had kind of a dud of an ending, but for the most part it's a good story. This is one I actually enjoyed reading. And Guy isn't my favorite Lantern, so it's not a bias on that. I do like him though. The next story, New Orleans, Louisiana, 1853. So in this one, again, good art. Not the greatest of stories, of writing. It's a whole lot of exposition and build up and lead up. It's about the demon Etrigan, and at first I really didn't like it because Etrigan doesn't speak like Etrigan and he doesn't act like Etrigan in the slightest. But it turns out it's because Jason Blood basically banished the demon from him and trapped him in a corpse. He broke free of the corpse and possessed a guy who had the yellow fever. So that turned him into a crazed psychopath, basically. And every time the demon came out of the guy, he was crazed from yellow fever and they were just going around murdering people. Jason eventually makes things right by freeing the guy. But, okay, so the man's wife is trying to put a stop to him. She asks Jason for help. Jason's like, I'm done with this stuff. But he follows her anyway, sees the demon, realizes that, this is my fault. I'm going to make things right. He takes possession of Etrigan again, essentially. Well, then Etrigan immediately makes his presence known again and murders the dude that he had previously been possessing. And then it's just like, oh, well, he used to beat you. He was always violent. I'm doing you a favor. So the only lead up to this is at one point, Jason Blood asks the wife, you do want your husband back, don't you? And what she says is, I don't want anybody else to die. That's our first lead up to the fact that this guy might actually be a bad dude. And then the next time we hear anything about it, it's Etrigan senselessly snapping the dude's neck and then being like, I took care of that wife beater for you. It just seems pointless and stupid. Like, if you had left this retarded ass subplot about spousal abuse out of this, it would have been a much better story. But instead you try and be deep and be like, yeah, even demons hate wife beaters. Yeah, well, no shit, but we don't need that fucking destroying this perfectly alright story. Art was good though. You did a fantastic job on the art there, artist. I appreciate you. Our next story is Superman. And this one's written by Mags. Obviously, I'm very biased towards Mags, but so take my review with a grain of salt. The art was on point. The artist did a great job. I think the writing was stupid. It had a good idea, this idea that the Invincible Man has something that can torture and torment him and get to him, even though he's the ultimate hero, basically. The execution was poor at best. I didn't like the narration. I didn't like the dialogue. I didn't like the fact that there really was no difference in the way Lois talked versus the way Superman talked. Did like the villain, did like the art. I would say this is a solid C performance on this story. And the artist carrying most of that grade. We move on to the next one. Lois, though, she looks adorable. The next is a Green Lantern story. And this one is kind of, That's about as much as you can get out of it. It's essentially Ollie is being haunted by a demon from his past. There's no real resolution at the end of it. They're like, it's just your imagination. This is just your imagination, Ollie. It's not actually real. And then you find out maybe it is actually his imagination and it isn't real, and he just hasn't been sleeping enough and needs to take it easy. I think if this monster had actually turned out to be something rather than nothing, this would have been a really good story. But I'm going to blame it on the 8-page limit. They just got to the last page and were like, shit, I got to wrap this up. And the next one, that's right. This one is by Brian Hill. This is, you guessed it, Black Lightning and Katana. This one wasn't bad. It had a lot of potential. I just think it was kind of, the idea was good. The plot was good. The dialogue was poor at best. All of Brian's main male characters talk and act exactly alike, and most of his females are the same way. And I just really wasn't into this story. Did like the villain. That was very cool. But I was not a fan of this story. I can see why some people might like it, but it was boring and pedantic. Then we got Robin. That's Damian Wayne's Robin, and Solomon Grundy. Honestly, my only complaint about this is that Solomon Grundy is the Hulk in the negative. Like, usually, I know it's a running joke that Solomon Grundy and the Hulk are the same fucking character, but Solomon Grundy usually has its own look. He's a little bit more caveman-y. This is straight up the Hulk. He drew the Hulk, and he painted him like Grundy. I don't know if this artist is normally a Marvel artist or what, but man, was it distracting how Hulk-like that Grundy was. And I take that back. I didn't actually like this story that much. This little pig dude is very clearly them trying to be tongue-in-cheek about incels, and man, this story really just freaking annoyed me. And he uses such ridiculous... The bad guy is very clearly supposed to be making fun of quote-unquote incels and people that the author, I imagine, disagrees with. And that was annoying. Apart from that, and Solomon Grundy, it was good. Then we finish it off with the Haunted Hayride and Creepy Corn Maze. This is a Katana story. The art was very meh. The writing was okay. It had nothing to do with being scary. It was really just about a little girl getting self-confidence and getting the best over her brothers that were going to fake scare her. All in all, this was in no way, shape, or form even remotely scary or anything along those lines. I feel like I wasted $10 on it, and I don't recommend anybody buy it if they haven't already, because that's way too much money. But anyway, that's my thoughts, my opinions. Feel free to disagree in the comments, all that nonsense. Anyway, Hail Hydra, baby. You have a good one.